Hey guys, I want to talk with you a little bit about how to plan your garden and your plantings for 2020. So a couple big key notes. You might find some pepper and tomato transplants, starts at your local gardening store. That doesn't mean it's time to plant it in the Northwest. Check your zones and follow those almost to the book, okay? So your tomato plants, if you plant them in the Northwest, will just die. They have to stay warm and cozy inside a greenhouse space, inside a cozy nook of your home with lots of natural light or a grow light. We have often bought our transplants just because they're beautiful, they are vigorous, they grow gorgeous, beautiful tomatoes, and we're doing all our starts this year with a grow light, and we're starting them now. I mean, every gardener would probably tell me that that's terrible. But I think it's going to be fine because we're not really going to put those tomatoes safely in the soil until mid-May or June. Okay, so do not plant your tomatoes. Don't plant your cucumbers, your squash, or your beans if you live in the Pacific Northwest. Keep those snug inside or in a greenhouse, and then they will totally do great. Also, you can plant cucumbers, zucchinis, beans, peas, all from seed straight into the soil. Tomatoes and chilies, you absolutely want to plant from transplants in the Northwest. They just won't have enough time to really take and grow and deal with sort of the short growing season that we have in the Northwest because it's fairly mild here. Okay, so the other thing to keep in mind is think about yield and think about what you love to eat and how you plan to cook it. So there are sort of ways to make your lists, right? You've got the things that you need and the things that you want. So the things that you need tend to be onions and carrots. Those are truly some of the most basic additions to so many meals, from slicing up and adding into a salad or a soup. Onions, I feel like almost every great meal starts with olive oil, onions, and garlic. So plant your onions, plant them from seed. Don't be scared, they go great. They really do grow well. Carrots, cabbages are really hardy. I'm about to plant some red cabbage. These are totally awesome because you can make a slaw, you can use them as a really easy wrap, add them to soups. So don't forget about your brassicas, your cabbages, your cauliflowers, your broccoli. Those end up kind of taking a lot of energy to grow, but they produce a really high density yield that you can use for many different meals. For your tomatoes, when you are thinking about your tomatoes, if you're planting your starts now, think in terms of paste tomatoes. Those are the ones like a San Marzano, a Roma tomato. Those are the ones that when you go to make your tomato sauce, and hopefully you'll want to do that, those are the ones that require many fewer tomatoes to make a great sauce. It's the paste tomatoes that you want to be growing right now. And then think about your sun, right? Sun, number one when it comes to tomatoes. You absolutely have to look at your sun cast and pick your space, even if it's totally inconvenient, for your tomatoes based on how much sun they get. So if you want to have just a bunch of really beautiful plum or cherry tomatoes, it's okay if you only get like 5 hours of sun. That's fine. But if you want to grow a full-fledged fruit like an heirloom tomato, a ton of paste varieties, or slicers, you're going to have more than 5 hours of sun. So you can pick your little pocket in your yard for those tomatoes, or do container planting and really amend that soil and really fertilize those tomatoes and water very carefully, which we'll go into a whole nother tutorial about that. But as you're thinking about your transplants and planning out what you might start or what you might buy, think in terms of those paste tomatoes for making sauces and salsas, because they go a lot farther. Anytime you're dealing with a slicer or a really awesome heirloom variety or a cherry tomato, those just aren't going to produce much in terms of sauce. Okay, so the other thing to really consider is, what kind of a grower are you? I know that so many of you right now are really growing food for a short amount of time out of fear and necessity. And you may be one of those growers that wants to have a small garden that you pull herbs and lettuces and maybe a few errant tomatoes from, and maybe you'll grow a cucumber or two. And that is totally fine. Like, that is going to be probably your entry into absolutely loving the process, or maybe not. Some of you are going to fall kind of right and squarely in the middle, where you're going to do a bunch of raised beds and you are going to grow stuff specifically for the season that stuff produces food, and you're going to harvest it and you're going to enjoy it, and come fall you're going to put your garden to bed and wait for spring. And the next sort of level, really, which I just want to encourage you to explore a little bit, is preserving, fermenting, and that's canning, that's freezing, and that's fermenting and pickling food. It's so easy. I feel like there's kind of all of this hoopla around this whole concept of preserving your food and homesteading and farmsteading, and it seems like it's a science. It's not. It's fun. It's simple. It's totally pleasurable to hang out with a group of friends around a kitchen island and can a bunch of stuff, right? So if you have the room, if you have the yard space, and you want to preserve stuff and you want to put stuff in jars to pull out come Christmas time or January, and you want to grow your own spaced tomatoes to give away at the holidays, or just pull out anytime you want, and that doesn't feel like a leap for you, then grow a ton of food. Like, plant the seeds. All that you might have is too much and you can give it away. So the last thing I want to say on this point is, when you are dealing with planning out your garden, look at what you can plant in the spring and what you can plant in the summer. That's going to be a really good guide for you, a very simplistic guide. The things that you plant in springtime, the things that you plant in springtime can the things that you plant in springtime are often things that you can then sow again. You can harvest and sow all the way through fall. You can't do that with garlic. You can't do that necessarily with onions. Those have kind of a time frame on them. But all of your green leafies, all of your radishes, many of your peas, you can sow later in the season than you realize. Once you start dealing with your summer veggies, with the things that really require sun, like tomatoes, chili peppers, green beans, squash, hardy squash, cucumbers, kind of that whole spectrum of summer food, like those you kind of have to just get in the soil when it gets sunny and hope for the best. And those are the transplants. Those are the ones that you can plant from seed. We did a ton of beans from seed. But what you're going to have to do is really think through, you have to really think through how many of those items you want to eat, right? It might feel really cool to have a couple bean plants, but if you have a family, 1 or 2 bean plants is going to feed you 3 meals, potentially. I mean, it depends on how vigorous your bean plant is. So it's okay to overplant. I think that there's sort of this split between planting only what you need and planting what you want, right? And if you really want to eat food from your garden, then you can just plant it all and you can see how it goes. And failure is fine, right? You'll learn more and you'll do something next year that you didn't do this year. So that's a little bit of a brain dump, and I'm sorry about that, but I do feel like I've been seeing these questions from people like, should I plant my tomatoes? Should I bring my cucumbers out because it's kind of mild enough? It's still going to be cold in the Pacific Northwest. It always is, and you don't want to kill all your plants, so don't plant those yet. Remember to save your greenhouse space for the things that really need that heat right now. Your peppers, your chili peppers, all of your tomatoes, those need like your grow lights, and those need your greenhouse spaces. Your cucumbers and zucchinis, they don't. Like, you can plant those from seed, save the space. Don't deal with those as starts right now. Don't deal with the mess and hassle of it. And think in terms of like long-term, what kind of a planter are you? Are you a grow a little bit now, learn as you go? Totally fine. Are you a dive in and plant stuff for the summer season and eat what you make? Totally fine. Are you somebody who wants to learn to preserve, can, and freeze? If you are, then you can plant more and you'll learn as you go. So have some confidence and dive in and have fun. Okay, thanks. That's my piece of info today. Thanks, bye.